And you can't get a coffee after 5. There's no coffee except for
Yeah.
the Starbucks, but now I'm boycotting them. So yeah, so there's nowhere to go for good coffee after 5 p.m. And some
Unless you
some
pop
coffee
into
shops close at 4.
Yeah, unless you pop into a mall, maybe like you'll have
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
still open, but that's about it.
So, welcome back. This is episode 14. David and I are joined by a visitor. We have Dylan Valley, filmmaker, scholar, Cape Townian. Is that a correct description of you?
Yes, yeah, that is very correct. That is very
Nice.
correct.
He's very
Yeah.
businesslike. That's very.
Formal.
Yeah.
The premise of the show is that we're two brothers living in two different continents, in two distinctive cities in those continents, Cape Town and New York City. David in Cape Town, I'm in New York. Dylan himself has lived in the US, in LA. Dylan, I don't know if you want to, how you remember your time in the US.
Yeah, I remember it fondly, I would say. I remember, I mean, that was a different time. That was like 10 years ago. So it was before the Trump era. Yeah, it was slightly a simpler time, I guess.
This is during the time of Obama.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, it was more complicated and not as simple. 'Cause in a way, the Trump era is quite simple. You know, whereas like with Obama,
What do you mean by that, Dylan?
in the sense that it's just very clear what the ills of society are, or like it's just very clear the like the project that's happening in America, what the kind of imperial project is of America,
Yeah.
which I think when I was there, it felt like, oh, it's cool, we got a black president, everything's fine, like everything's chill, and don't worry, Obama's got it, he's gonna fix everything. And actually, there was a lot of stuff going on during the Obama era, which, like he was just like a very savvy Democratic center politician, really. Yeah, but
He was doing all kinds of nonsense like drones to take out enemies of the US. Yeah.
Yeah,
Destabilizing
yeah.
governments.
If I'm not wrong, they say there was more deportations under Obama than any other president, and there were some underlying issues as well. Yeah, so I honestly understand what you're talking about, because for people from South Africa, and obviously who stayed there, we only saw what we were shown. What they call
Yeah,
the media only shows you what they want to show you, so you're not aware of what's going on in America. So it's nice to get a point of view from someone that stayed there. So yeah.
yeah,
I think we were all taken by the fact that a country that was professing to be a democracy, but like South Africa, has like a deep history of racism, that for its first time in its history, it elected a black man to be its president. So even though we, like you said, we knew centrist Democrat, kind of center right, but the symbolism of having somebody who sort of looks like you know, running the most powerful country in the world, even if you have problems with that idea, was symbolically it was a very powerful image. And I think a lot of us kind of fell for it. Like we should have, I mean, I did. I went to a party at the next at night, burlesque. I was in Manhattan that night, but when I got back to Brooklyn, there were like people dancing and crazy. So I agree with you.
Yeah. But it was in that sense was complicated, in the sense that there was a positive to the fact that he was a president, and in many ways he was a good president. But yeah, he still served. He was at the risk of sounding.
At least apparently he was cool.
Yeah.
He was cool. Yeah, he could do a 3-pointer. Put it on social media and that kind of stuff. That was when social media was also like in its infancy, and it was kind of seen as was a force for change. We hadn't yet kind of come to where we are now, where it's basically destroying our lives.
So you're basically saying he was good at basketball and Trump cheating at golf. So very different perspectives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Nothing crazy.
Hopefully Dylan will come back regularly and we can talk about some films with him, because he's an incredible documentary filmmaker. We should recommend. He's made a film called Afrikaans about language, and we'll get into that. Hopefully some of that will be part of our conversation. He's made a VR film recently about the housing crisis in Cape Town and housing struggles in Woodstock, this part of the central city of Cape Town. Sometimes we talk about Cape Town, assuming everybody knows where everything is. But in any case, he's made some interesting. Even made a film about Tatumkulu Africa, the writer.
Mhm.
How did we meet? I was thinking about that earlier today. I was wondering how we met.
We met during the 2010 World Cup, and we watched a game at your B&B that you were staying at in Obs, or you were staying at someone's house in Obs. And Lee Ursus, the rapper, a mutual friend of ours, introduced us to each other, and we watched the soccer game together. I don't even remember what game it was. I don't know if it was I don't know if South Africa. Yeah,
That's the time when you could take the train at night, right?
yeah.
Take the metro. You could take the metro late at night with like thousands of other people. And what were you doing at that time?
At that time, I was freelancing in Cape Town as a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, and videographer. You know, trying to like, yeah, just basically build a career focusing on documentary at the time. And yeah, and I was actually at a juncture whether I should go teach English in South Korea or whether I should do my studies. I don't know if you remember this, but you actually told me, why do you want to go teach English in South Korea? Why do you want to go do that? Rather just study further.
That sounds like Sean. That sounds like him.
Yeah. And it actually, it must have had a big impact on me because I never went to study. I never went to South Korea. I went to study in the US and went into academia. So, and still making documentaries.
Brilliant.
I don't know if David was curious.
Now Sean is never going to get the story now because in some way he had influence.
I do have a habit of sort of telling people what they should do. It's a kind of it's a thing that probably in our family I do the same thing, right?
What do they call it? It's a blessing and a curse.
It's like me telling people you need to do X, and like and they're like, why?
Yeah.
As long as there's a happy ending, I guess it's okay. If there's a happy ending.
Yeah.
By the way, funny story. There's some people that think that Dylan's my son.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that happens a lot. Like whenever we take a picture together, then people are like, "Oh,
you guys do look alike, though." Maybe it's just the glasses. People assume a lot of things, so yeah, maybe they see the glass and.
Well, I would be happy to have him as a son, but that's I don't think I'm that old, but I would be happy to have him.
Well, you guys, if I listen to the story, 2010, you guys know each other for 15 years. That's a hell of a long time, and still to be in context. I would say brothers, though. The father and son thing is a bit weird, but
if after 15 years you and I have not had like a major fallout, then it's okay. Then we're good, because often, like if you're friends with people, you can have there'll be like this thing where maybe you disagreed with them about something, or maybe you're like, nah, I don't think we should do that. And then they're mad at you. And I think that's interesting that we haven't done that. Like there's people that I've met and I've worked with them, but they're also friends. And if we often will, there's some occasions where you don't get along and you fall out with them. I don't know if David, you have that where you then realize like, oops.
I think you could understand who your friends are, because the honesty thing just like it either interrupts everything and makes it worse, or it can make it better. It either solidifies. But I think the honesty thing is an issue for a lot of people. They want you to be a yes man. So if you tell me you want to jump off the bridge, I'm supposed to tell you, wonderful, that's the best idea you've ever had. And that's not a friend. So once you're honest and you tell them about your feelings and how you feel about something, they might not be so, they don't handle it as well, and that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah. I think it's good to.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think it's good to like. I think when you have a fallout with a friend and then you're still friends afterwards, that's also like. I mean, then okay, this is like, this is good, or like at least a confrontation. If you have like because I'm confrontation averse. Like I hate confrontation. So I always feel afterwards like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. But actually, sometimes it actually makes you closer. Like people, as long as it's like respectful.
So one of the traditions we do on this pod or show is to talk about the thing that dominates relations between the two countries. And right now, it's the white South African refugees to the US. I mean, like, we felt it's useful to update people on this, like how many of them are there, where are they? So the latest, I've noticed that the story have sort of gone quiet now that Donald Trump, it seems, have no need for them. He doesn't seem to have any need for them because they played a function within US politics. If you were in the US, they played a function because Elon Musk was around him, and Elon Musk, that was part of Elon Musk's thing to get his Starlink to South Africa. He had the ear of all the kind of the right wingers in South Africa. So obviously, and Trump was right wing too. It played out, but somehow it's not a story anymore. But in any case, it's still happening. So in the last couple of days, Reuters had a story up, and it had an update that so far the State Department, which is kind of their Department of Foreign Affairs, has resettled 88 South Africans under the program. So if you remember, there was an initial group of 59 who came here in May, and then another 59. Then a second group came. That's now, I think it was like 14 or 15. I don't know. That's how we come to 88. My math is wrong. 59 plus what is 88? I think my math is wrong.
29.
21. So another 21 came. Yeah. So we got to get our math right. Obviously, Dylan and I would not cut out
29, not 21.
We both counted like badly there. So then another 15 people. Yes. And thank you. Another 15 are expected to arrive by the end of August. But here's what's interesting in the last couple of days. So the U.S. State Department was asked whether all Afrikaans speakers, including colored Afrikaans speakers or Black South Africans, and again, this is very South African heavy race language, would be eligible for asylum. And the way the Reuters, this is the big news agency, phrases it, they said, could non-whites apply for a refugee program geared towards white South Africans if they met other requirements? And the reason they ask that is because in the initial cable, in one of the initial cables, like a diplomatic cable, the US had said they could process claims from other minority groups who could speak Afrikaans. So if you're minority and you speak Afrikaans, and in South African language, of course, colored people, Indians are considered part of minorities. And then when he was pressed on this, this official was, his name is Spencer Chrétien. He's the highest ranking official in the State Department's Refugee and Migration Bureau, said that the program is only intended for white people. And another official mentioned indigenous South Africans known as the Khoisan people, and not a racial group. And then here's the kicker, and I'll stop because I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. At least one family identified as colored has already traveled to the US as refugees. People familiar with this matter said. Now, it's unclear whether these people came as part of this 88, but they had separately applied to be refugees. I just want to hear your opinions. And I know, Dylan, you were on a podcast with Chester Missing quite recently, talking about Afrikaans and kind of language and race. So I'm curious, like, how, when you hear something like this, what happens in your head?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, in a way, this whole story I really appreciate it in a way because it highlights the ways in which whiteness operates. Because it's like it's all about even since the origins of whiteness is about maintaining a certain hierarchy in the world of people, and so this story it's about like, yeah, we want Afrikaners, or it's like an idea of Afrikaners, but only like, but that group, and what the US is saying is like we only see them as an ethno-nationalist group. They're like an ethnic group. We don't want Afrikaners of different kinds. So there's no kind of conception of what it means to be an Afrikaner today, like this kind of reimagining of what does it mean to be an Afrikaner today. And basically, this kind of thing goes back to the beginnings of whiteness, because the idea of white people was invented for this kind of thing, was to like protect rights and resources for a specific kind of people, to like and also to like justify things like slavery and things like that. So yeah, and it's funny the colored person or the colored people that slipped in there, because the first, like I mentioned in the Chester Missing interview, like the first people to call themselves Afrikaners were what today we would call colored people, because they were mixed different Khoi groups or queer groups, and European descent, and other kind of groups that were in the Cape at the time. They were these
like slaves.
They were slaves. People were brought from other places, so they were what they called the Oorlands Afrikaners, and they actually went on to leave the Cape Colony and found Namibia. So they were the first people to really call themselves Afrikaners, kind of that we have like a record of. And later on, the word Afrikaner, there's this group called the Genootskap van die Regte Afrikaners, which, as Patrick Mellett says, the fact that they said we are the Regte Afrikaners means there's already people. They were aware that there are already people calling themselves Afrikaners. They're like, yeah, maar ons is die Regte Afrikaners. We are the real Afrikaners. So it's like the organization of the real Afrikaners, or the true Afrikaners. So for me, it's both funny, sad, frustrating, but also like it's a great example of like it's of the racism that's embedded in Afrikaner identity, and it's sad that we haven't gotten to a place where we have reimagined these these colonial identities, these categorizations. So yeah, I'm very like happy to like keep following the story as long as it goes, because I think it tells us so much, and it's revealing a lot to the world. But what's frustrating about it for me is there's a lot of half truths also that get said, or like there's a lot of people still don't understand that Afrikaans is, for example, like Creole. It's a Creole language. It's like Jamaican patois in a way. If you think about English and patois, it's derived from Dutch, yes, but it's like a combination of different languages and cultures in the Cape due to slavery and indigenous peoples who were already here that created this language. So it's like people now say, like in what I've seen from American commentators sometimes, like from the left in America, is like, we don't want to hear that Afrikaans language here. We don't want to hear that like gato. And it's like on the one hand, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's funny to see how
but
they
that's
like
because there people think that the language is white, and you correct. There was this concerted attempt by white nationalists to create this impression that it's a white language. They dominated like the institutions that define these things: the schools, the universities, the state, the radio, the television. So it's not shocking that then they kind of they created that impression. They also tried to get other people to learn the language.
Yeah,
I get your point, but it's partly a consequence of how this language had developed over time and how we were written out of it, which is also shocking why there's a movement in South Africa to claim another Afrikaans for Black or colored people as separate from this Afrikaans, rather than insisting that no, that's our language.
Yeah. That's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing. It's like the idea of COPS as a separate language. I understand it. I understand the logic behind it, but I'm not sure linguistically. Yeah, whether one, I'm not sure linguistically if it is a separate language. Or two, I don't think we need to do that. I think we need to reclaim Afrikaans. I don't think we need to break away from Afrikaans and say because our ancestors did participate in the creation of the language as it is, the pure Afrikaans, as the people who control it like to say, the saver Afrikaans. We did create that. Our ancestors did create that. We co-created that. So it's like, like we're saying, that, like we showed you in the Afrikaans documentary, which is on YouTube. So if anybody is curious who's listening to this, they can Google it and find it on YouTube. But there's a part where we show how even in the dictionary, like the Afrikaans dictionary, there's words that come from Indonesia, like baiki, baya, pisang, latjang. These are words that are like in standard Afrikaans, like the standardized Afrikaans. And like there's other words like ena and like everyday words that are indigenous words, right? And a lot of that stuff was obviously like written out of the dictionary, but there's a lot of it that remained. So so I think we have to acknowledge that. I think it's really important that we don't just say that for us Black speakers and colored speakers of Afrikaans, we're just speaking Kaps. That's just
there's other Afrikaans too. Yeah.
There's other forms of Afrikaans. There's the ones spoke in the Northern Cape. There's funny galore in the mines, that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of Afrikaans around South Africa. David, sorry, I know you were going to say something.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just wanted to say, I saw the interview with Chester, and I know you said you English first language, and Sean and myself are Afrikaans first language. And so for us, or for myself, I would think it's a question of identity. Do you call yourself Afrikaner? Will people assume in another country that you now associate yourself with whiteness because you call yourself an Afrikaner? Is it stolen from you? Is your identity gone now? I kind of agree with you with the thing about Trump and the State Department coming out and saying that they're only going to take white Afrikaners. I think they're not ashamed to say how they feel anymore. There's no underlying issues or trying to hide that fact. And I think it was in this week I saw a documentary of a group of white people starting their own community in Arkansas, similar to Orania, where they now say they Gen Z, the young people, and they want to create a community just for themselves. They say they considered a group a group of like-minded people, but they base themselves on race. So it's a bit tricky when you look at something like that. But also as you go forward, like this colored family that got themselves into the States. Look, I would generally think they're opportunists because they were probably aware of what was put out there by the State Department, telling them they're only going to accept white Afrikaners, but they obviously felt there might be a loophole for them to get into the country.
A couple of years ago, I think it was like 2009, Herman Wasserman and we wrote this op-ed for the Globe and Mail because there was a South African a white South African who had applied for asylum in Canada because he said he was a victim of crime in South Africa. And then it turns out he was actually colored.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think he was Patrick Millet's cousin. I think Patrick Millet came out and said, "Oh, that's my cousin." So there's a long history of this sort of like, I don't want to call them white identifying, but it doesn't mean like, it means more like white in terms of like access to power, certain kind of privileges. And some of the, like, you'll be amazed, like often if I'm in South Africa, when you see some colored people who support Trump, who read basically the universe from this perspective of being victims of change, as if like, and you're like, hold up, son, your peoples were forcefully removed, you were denied rights, you couldn't vote, and somehow you're viewing your whole experience through this weird perspective of white South Africa. So I'm not shocked when I read, or if I learn that there's like these colored families who are applying for asylum in the US.
What is the big thing? So guy goes to Canada, says I'm white, but he's actually colored. My question, however, is is it only crime if it's done to a white person, or is it not crime if it's done to a colored person in Cape Town or his own area in South
Now, you know
Africa?
the answer,
You
David. You know
understand
the
what I'm saying?
answer.
Like that is quite weird, because is crime against him taken more seriously than crime against me? It's still crime. So I can't go
Yeah.
to another country and claim asylum because, oh, I feel there's crime being committed against a colored person or a black person in his country. So yeah, this thing about whiteness is being played.
David, you are being David. Why are you so? No, I'm just messing with you. Why are you so naive, bro? Crime
I'm
that
not
happens
naive.
to you is
No, no, I'm not
natural.
naive. Everybody's thinking like it's weird how they do this thing, where they just like it's a mind switch. Like, okay, if I'm white, it's crime against me. I'm supposed to be. I'm not. This shouldn't happen to me. But it's okay if it happens to you because you're colored and black. You should be. You should
Yeah.
be aware of this, and you should be used to this by now. You know,
Well,
that's how the.
both of you lived in the most well-governed province in South Africa, but ironically, it has the highest murder rate. It feels like Naples in the 1980s with the levels of organized crime, but I'm assuming it doesn't affect the people living in the leafy suburbs. So therefore, it's well governed, but there's no national crisis or there's no people from the Cape Flats who can say I'm a refugee of the crime of the Cape Flats. So, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I think that's one of the really sad parts of where we're at now, is like kind of seeing like in very clear terms from like, from the Oval Office to, you know, in like wherever in Cape Town, right? Like local government, it's like whose lives actually count, whose lives matter, like even with the ways in which people were like locally, I'm talking about like the city of Cape Town, and obviously the media in the West, the difference in covering and talking about Ukraine versus Gaza and Palestine. So like you had like John's TNAs and going to
For people who are
Ukraine.
not South African, that's the leader
Yeah.
of the second largest opposition party in South Africa. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So the leader of the Democratic Alliance that governs Cape Town and is seen as a largely white party, like serving white constituents, and they made it quite clear that that's actually what they do. So yeah. So he went to Ukraine. He did a photo op. They were like really outspoken about it. They wanted to. I don't know if they actually did this. I can't remember. But they wanted to like light up Table Mountain the colors of the Ukrainian flag. I can't remember if they actually did it or not, but I remember it being spoken about. But it's like, yeah, then when it comes to Palestine, like it's just dead
Well,
silence.
Palestinians aren't white, bro.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Exactly.
I was going to talk about is changing gears. We're all hip hop fans. Well, I'm probably
Yes.
as you can see, aging. I'm
You're
of the
Unk. You're Unk now.
I'm the unk. I'm the unk, but not the Shannon Sharp version. Let's keep it like that. But the thing I was kind of reading last week, Complex. I'm not sure how much cultural power Complex still have, but Complex was big in the kind of second decade of the 2000s and kind of defining popular culture. They had like a magazine and everything, like print magazine. Now they're just a website. So they have this thing called the Hip Hop Media Power Rankings. This is the third year in a row that they have it. And they basically highlight the most influential voices in rap music, like the coverage of rap music and rap culture. So they include streamers, podcasters, critics, and there's a long list of I think about 25 people. I won't get into them because it's very American centric. But the top 5 is Kai Cenat. You guys know who that is at least.
Yeah.
When you invited me to talk about this, I had to Google him. Like I had no idea. I was so surprised that was number 1.
I think he's from the Bronx. He's just a streamer, and he's so popular here. If there's an award show, he will stream so there's the official broadcast on one of the big networks. He'll stream it, and a significant proportion of the people who watch that particular show watch his stream of that show. And the one that was funny, I don't know if you may have seen this clip around where he's coming out of, I think, the BET Awards, and Wale, the rapper from Maryland, he
Mm-hmm.
walks by Kaiser Nat, and Kaiser Nat says to him, "What are you playing?" And as he says some game, and Kaiser Nat gets in the car, I was like, "Who's that?" You know, Kaiser Nat has the thing of saying, chat, who is that? And the chat's like, "Yo, it's Wale." He's like, "Yo, they say he's a rapper, famous rapper." So it's like, Wale was upset about this because he felt he was disrespected and everything.
Yeah.
What up, Rusty? You good? What you playing on your Nintendo Switch?
Smash.
Smash Bros? I'll beat you. Alright, gang. Chad, does anybody have the Nintendo Switch? You're not even a Nintendo Switch type of nigga. Nah, me neither. I ain't gonna lie. But I heard it was like crazy though. I heard it was crazy, bro. Wale. Oh my God, that was somebody crazy. Hey, the whole chat knows him.
Wale.
Wale? What he do?
Rap.
Oh, word?
Lotus Flower Bomb and all that stuff.
Oh, shit.
Final person is, of course, Charlemagne the God.
Controversial.
With a name like that, I'll give it to him. I'm not a big fan of his. I think he's quite reactionary politically, but somehow he actually has a very mainstream career. If you're thinking of somebody who works on the radio as a DJ, he comes out of that. He's a little bit older, and he's still on a regular radio show in New York called The Breakfast Club.
Doesn't he guest host the old show of Trevor every now and then?
He does the Daily Show. You know what's funny? He hasn't really broken into TV. I think he wants to be perceived as this serious political commentator, but he doesn't. It doesn't work. If he talks about hip hop culture, the kind of things that people who love pop culture care about, he's very good. If he has a podcast with Andrew Schultz, which is this kind of right-wing commentator who pretends to be liberal. Exactly. But he hasn't really broken through in the main. So, okay, let's get to the rub. I'm curious to hear your reactions to this kind of list, and I'm kind of interested whether when you see that and you're sitting in South Africa, is that for you a fair reflection as people who were in and around kind of hip hop culture of the most influential media people? And do that reach of these people, does it translate to South Africa? Right? Do they have the same kind of cultural impact?
I mean, David, what do you think? What do you think? I
Look,
see you shaking.
Personally, I don't think they have the reach. Kaiser Nat would, because he's a gamer, number one, and he was on Twitch, so obviously he has that following. So they've got a way of transforming themselves into commentators now. Like you say, they'll watch a show and he'll say some funny things on the side. You'll get Kevin Hart to come in, so it's very relatable. He sees himself as somewhat of a comedian, so it's quite good to watch every now and then. But I don't think the reach is in Cape Town per se. Charlemagne the God, I think he had a meme once where Birdman told him, "Put some respect on my name." He said something crazy to him. Like that's what I remember of him when you put the name on. I was like, I know this guy. I know. That's what I say. I've seen him on the show a couple of times. He wants to get into politics, like you say. He wants to go mainstream, but I don't think it translates to South Africa. If you understand what I'm saying, or Cape Town, we don't have that. And I know people shouldn't shoot me for this. I know we have a love of hip hop, but we only listen to. When I say we, I say this generally. We only listen to the hip hop that we're shown. Not a lot of people go underground. And I think these guys, when they commentate about hip-hop, they go underground. They, like the Joe Buddens, they would talk about people that you would never hear of unless you listen to real hip-hop. And not the stuff that you see on Trace Music or MTV or anything like that. So if you really want to listen to hard-hitting hip-hop, you'll go underground, and then these people might make sense to you. And then you'll listen to their shows and you can relate. But I don't think it would do well in Cape Town. Not at all.
Or South Africa. Ellen?
South Africa, yeah.
Yeah, I think locally we, in the past few years, we have basically developed a hip hop industry of its own. So whereas when I was, a 20-year-old, there was underground hip hop in Cape Town, and then there was the global hip hop industry. There wasn't really an industry of like hip hop. So it was like,
Or in Joburg, there was like commercial hip hop.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
even then, like there was commercial hip hop in Joburg, but it wasn't commercial in the sense that we see it now, where it's like,
Yeah.
you know, people like Casper Nyovest, like when he filled up the dome. The reason why the whole thing of filling up a huge arena was a thing in celebrity because the rapper hadn't yet done it before. So like he actually was, you know, was like overstating the importance of the moment and stuff, but it was an important moment in kind of hip hop history. And I think now also there's kind of a local ecosystem that drives what people are interested in, what they listen to. There's a lot of local stuff. I think the American stuff people do pay attention to, and it gets re-amplified through like you know, like media, like radio, like Metro. Yeah, you know, they pay attention, I know, to what's going on in the States a lot in terms of hip hop and that kind of thing. But I think there's less of a focus on, you know, like what American media is doing. But I know the last thing I'll say about the list is that like I really had to embrace that I'm fully in my Unk era now, because I was like this, because I'm not like most of the people on the list. Like I'm not following them or like really listening to what they're doing, that kind of thing. I kind of I'm stuck in my own algorithm in YouTube. That's how I'm finding hip hop these days.
Probably because I'm in the US. Nice and Nat will pop up on feeds. Even if I've never live like sat around listening to a Kaisanat stream or watch a Kaisanat stream. On the other hand, I have sometimes listened to academics going off about hip hop, even if I don't care about it necessarily. It's like background noise. And actually, academics had a show on Complex with Joe Budden.
Yeah, they were together for a while.
Yeah, then Joe Biden left, and then he went back, and then sort of built up his own show. So that's, I think, where that comes from. Salomon the God, because just being in New York, something happens, you will listen to them discuss it. I just want to ask one quick question. Does South Africa have then the streamers and podcasters who help set culture? For you, who in South Africa is that like streamer, podcaster who represents the kind of hip hop aesthetic, or somebody where you watch and you're like, that captures like some of the things I'm thinking about? So is it Mac G? Is it those two rugby dudes who used to play rugby, but they do have a show on the stream? Yeah, Juan de Jong and them. I'm just like, so if you have to say three names, and they don't all have to be men, because this list is very male heavy, that you in South Africa can say, oh yeah, that's the equivalent of this.
I would say Mac G though. I think a lot of people listen to him. I think he's got 1.36 million followers. So yeah, I think definitely him. I think there's something for everybody. Like you say now with the Juan de Jong thing. If you want to listen to rugby, and they've got some great people that they interview. There's another one with Jean de Villiers and Skull Burger.
For me, Juan de Jong, and I forgot the other guy's name. The other one.
Yeah, it was a scramble for the Bulls.
I think those guys, because they're black, right? They are, for me, they have a sort of hip hop aesthetic.
Representing it.
I don't think Jean de Villiers, I can't think of that as hip hop. So I'm thinking more like who represent that kind of urban aesthetic, the flats, the townships, but who made it good and who goes places and talks about stuff. And you're like, I watch that stuff and I'm like, I get their journey. I get their story. Yeah.
For me, that's like definitely Mac G. You know, he kind of came out. His podcast became like the biggest podcast in South Africa, and even Democracy Now! Quoted Mac G in one of their episodes. They're talking about interview that Mac G did with Errol Musk. It was like, so it's so funny hearing Amy Goodman cite Mac G.
This is Errol Musk's father, Errol, on Podcast and Chill with Mac G, discussing Elon Musk's mother's father, Joshua Haldeman, alleging he supported Nazis and South Africa's support team.
But that's how influential they are now, right? Like, so they are like kind of doing stuff that even reaches beyond the borders. And he represents that young black crowd. He's very pro-black business and promoting other black creators. Yeah, but in terms of hip hop and that kind of culture, there's also a guy Ibi the Dude, I think his name is. I really like watching his YouTube videos. And he's on TikTok and stuff. He's like a Congolese guy in like colored neighborhoods, and he has a colored girlfriend, and so he's like very much like he embodies kind of like colored culture. Like he uses like like local slang and that kind of thing, and like the way he talks.
And like, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if he's actually done any hip hop content, but that's kind of like, I feel like he would be listening to like hip hop. It'd be cool if somebody like him did more like interviews with like rappers who are like doing their own things. I feel like that's lacking here, like in terms of, especially in Cape Town, like in Joburg, they don't have any lack of this kind of media, I think. But it's like this kind of like, like a figure that can like interview youngster one week and then interview like another rapper like that's coming up like the next week or that kind of thing. I think that's something that somebody should do.
I've always said, you lived in LA and you know this, like LA people, OGs in LA have figured out a way to tell their stories. So you can be on the YouTube, Instagram, whatever, and they're these dudes from like, Crenshaw, Watts, whatever, breaking down like this kind of very particular, peculiar way of growing up in LA. In Cape Town, where are the podcasts about those histories? Where are the people sitting down, putting those people, respecting them, let them tell their stories? But no, we have some like that. Who's that white kid who does these weird interviews where he talks to like people?
Oh, Wide Awake podcast. Yeah, I've never done that.
I'm going to be frank. I'm not a fan of that. I know there's other people who are like, oh yeah, no. I'm not a fan of the way that whole setup is. It's very kind of voyeuristic, and it just
like
feels
going into the descriptions on the videos just make me know, like where it says like going to the most dangerous neighborhood.
He has been called out a few times by viewers, telling him that the way he brings the story across is not representing of the community or the person that he's talking about. Like it's almost like they say it's borderline exploitation. So yeah.
Where's the podcast that breaks down what he does? I think to Dylan's point, where's that regular show in which you might even ask youngster, what do you make of that? Or you ask, 3 months Cup, asking them like, yo, what do you think of this? Like this thing where some dude is like, I'm in Manenberg, I'm, in the most dangerous. Those places are dangerous. There's also life there. So to turn everything into this voyeuristic thing that he does is like annoying. Like I'm not a big fan of this. Anyway, I have one last thing. There's something cool, interesting, a cultural piece, a song, a book, since we talked about music, show an artist from where you are right now that you think people should know something about. Dylan,
like there's a rapper that I've really been into since last year, and he's not technically from where I'm from, but he is from the continent. He's from his parents are Zimbabwean, so his name's Billy Woods, but he's based in the US, and he raps a lot about South Africa, raps a lot about makes reference to like growing up in Zim. His family were intellectuals and diplomats. I think his father was actually in ZANU-PF possibly, because he mentioned something in government. But he's really interesting in the sense of like breaking down the post-colonial condition in Africa, like living in a post-colony. So he has this album called Ethiops, with the A, so it's spelled with an A, so it's AETH, and it's he touches on a lot of things. He even mentions Kaapstad. He says the word Kaapstad in there once or twice, but he does it in a very he's never like kind of lecturing you. He's kind of like telling stories, but in this very poetic and scattered way. Like he'll touch on things here and there and that kind of thing. And the beats are great, and his lyrics are great. Like he's an amazing lyricist. So I've been really into that lately. In terms of Cape Town, I have to be honest, I'm really curious here what David has to say, because I haven't been really listening to a lot of Cape Town hip hop lately. But I want to say one thing. I did rediscover my old Gardessa CD from back in the day. Yeah, from my parents' house when they moved, and I got a box of CDs, and one of them was Gardessa Spillage. And that album still holds up today. It's so good. I think because there were like three women, like they were so underrated at the time. They were just like great like lyricists and musicians and like political thinkers. So like a lot of the analysis of South Africa at that time, or like the observations, are still relevant now. But also like globally, like they were talking about, I think Denver from Mood Phase 5, which is another great South African jazz hip-hop band.
Was the other vocalist on Mood Phase 5 again?
Ernestine Dean.
Ernestine Dean, yeah. Yo, you take me back, son.
Yeah, because we're unks. Yeah, this is out.
I was in Cape Town enjoying my music, seeing Gardessa. I actually saw Gardessa live the last time at Veegekraal.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Do you know the stadium?
Yeah.
I think it was a trade union. It was May Day.
Wow.
The May Day thing. Yeah.
That's the thing. Then, like, you had like rappers at like May Day events and that kind of thing. That was always hip hop and politics were so closely connected.
And Mood Phase. I think I saw Mood Phase the last time at the festival, the OBS Festival.
Oh
in Road. I don't know if that still exists.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't exist anymore.
So that was And that's also talk about language and bringing it full circle to language. That's also where I saw what were they called, Brasse and that punk band from Pharrell Abrams them.
Oh, the Genuines.
No, not the Genuines. This is the later punk band. So this is the
song. Nine.
Nine, yeah, and they did that song. Does he Cape Flats? Does he Cape Flats? Does he
Yeah, my thing is just like big ups, Dylan. Respect. My thing is just like I'm listening to a lot of Afrikaans rap in Cape Town. Like you got these guys called this guy called Ziggy 4X. He's in Manenberg, and then you got Pengi. So it's a lot of gangster rap. A lot of people backing against each other. But what I love is the focus on the language. So they're not throwing in English. They're not. If they do, it's a collaboration between someone in Heideveld and someone in London. Obviously they're not together, but they shoot the videos at different times and they're crossing continents. So it's amazing for me to see. It's the love of Afrikaans. Maybe the message will get lost here and there, but they talk about the place where I grew up, where a lot of people grew up. They talk about the circumstances, the situation. We all know what's going on. So yeah, it's bringing you back to that. It makes you remember of the time you were in the hood. So yeah, I'm loving the Afrikaans. It's like drill and it's growing quickly. I mean, one song today, give it 24 hours and you'll have 4 million views. That's how big it's getting in South Africa.
Wow. If you're driving in around Cape Town, can you hear that coming from people's cars?
Oh, the kids can rap every word for you, bro. Like if we're playing the taxis, these songs are big now. So these artists are in clubs every weekend. There's a guy from PE, Junior King. I saw him now the other day in a club that my friend owned. Amazing artist. The live performance, it's crazy. It's just on another level. So I'm loving what the youngsters are bringing. Obviously, I'm the unk. So when they greet me, it's like, hi, sir. Hi, brother. Thanks, my man. Thank you for making me feel old. But yeah, I'm loving what the young people are bringing into the thing. And I like that there's a message behind it. So yeah.
Mine is this, there's a new memoir by Jean Grae. Jean Grae is everybody's favorite rapper from the 90s. I don't know why we're all picking like hip hop. But she's like, everybody swears by her, from like Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Black Thought, anybody who's like a top MC. But Jean Grae, for people from South Africa, she's the daughter of Satima Benjamin, the singer, and Abdullah Ibrahim, the composer, pianist. And she wrote a memoir called In My Remaining Years, which is weird because, I mean, she's like, I think she just turned 40 and she's writing a memoir of her life. So it's an interesting book, coming to terms with her own self, like around sexuality, around image, like her body. Like she writes very frankly about how she feels about her body. The cover is quite weird. It's like her standing in front of a coffin. The part that I think is very fascinating for people interested in kind of the culture of music and particularly South African music history, she writes about her parents. She's very kind to her mother. Like the book is in a sense a bit of a love letter to her mother and her mother's music, and it ends with this like her taking her mother's ashes to France, where she throws it into the Seine. And as people would know, her mother made an album in the 60s called Morning in Paris, that with Duke Ellington. The album was never seen or heard, and then the album finally came out in the mid-90s. So I think there's a bit of that in there. And it's a lot about the story of also growing up in New York. There's an engagement with the idea of being colored and being black, because when people met her, and her father, she said, could fit in easily in this kind of global understanding of what we mean by black people. Her mother, it was more difficult. Her mother's very light-skinned. And then if her mother came around to school, other kids would ask questions. And so she writes about that, coming to terms with that, and being, that heritage of being somebody who's have a history in Cape Town. But the thing that really got me, though, is there's a book about Satima Benjamin actually written with Carol Miller, who's a music historian from South Africa, based here in the US. But you get a sense of Satima's history, early history in Cape Town, abuse, neglect, and so on. And she meets Abdullah and then kind of makes music. But what I find interesting about this book is Jean Grae loves her mother, but she's not a fan of her father, which I thought is very interesting, how very frank she is about the relationship between her parents. At one moment, she refers to her father as if I get the phrase right, an abusive narcissist.
Wow.
She describes him announcing that he was going to divorce her mother, and then her mother kind of abruptly leaves New York and moves to Cape Town. And I think there's about, if I counted, because I was really curious as to how she thinks and writes about her father, there's maybe like 7 or 8 references to him, and they're all negative.
Wow.
So this is interesting because it's kind of a legacy that's very protective. You never really got any sense, something about the artists and their lives, like particularly like the people who lived here were in exile during that kind of dark period of apartheid. And you get now something by Jean Grae, who I think is born roughly, she might be mid-40s now, 1975 or 76 she was born. Or maybe she's almost 50, right?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. So interesting book. I would recommend it if this book becomes available in South Africa. I would recommend it to people.
Yeah. I'll be back whenever you guys say, and I'm gonna go listen to Kais and that now. To Ziggy 4X. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm really happy to hear that there's like such huge support there. So, yeah, I'm excited about that.
Thanks, brothers. Appreciate it. Yeah. That was episode 14. Thank you, people.